Hey everyone, and welcome to Sentinel Sports Extra, our Guardians weekly report. No analytics here. I'm Tim Shirer. We're going to recap the last 7 days for the Guardians. They played 6 games. They were on the road. They traveled to Baltimore first to play at Oriole Park at Camden Yards, and then they went to PNC Park in Pittsburgh over the weekend. So I predicted, along with my guest last week, Josh Doan, we predicted they would go 3-3 this week. Well, they made us look bad. They went 4-2. I figured 2-1 or 1-2 in Baltimore. I did. Baltimore had been playing bad. I figured they're going to get on track. They're too good to be not a good team. So, I was thinking, the Guardians take 1 in Baltimore and drop 2. Okay. But I thought they'd go 2-1 against Pittsburgh just because on Saturday, Paul Skeens started for the Pirates. But the Guardians, they belted him around, if you can call that belting him around. They won 3-0. So they swept the Pirates. So to go 4-2 for the week, they're now 12-9 on the year. They are a half game out of first place, half game behind the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers are 12-8. The Guardians are 12-9. So the Guardians are 1 game behind the Tigers on the loss column. The division, though, it's really starting to take shape, and where I think it will be, I thought the Royals would step back a little this year, but I thought the Tigers would maybe step back a little this year too. But the Royals are definitely struggling out of the chute here. They're falling fast. They are now 4.5 games out of first. They're 9-14. They won yesterday. They're 9-14. They won yesterday, but they're 2-8 in their last 10. And the Minnesota Twins, are even worse. They are 3-7 in the last 10, so they're 1 game better than the Royals. But the Twins are 7-15 and 6 games out of first already. They're lucky that the White Sox are in the division. The White Sox are in last, 5-16. So, So the Guardian. I was wrong. The Guardians are a half game behind the Tigers, but that's because the Tigers have played 1 more game and they have 13 wins. They're 13-9. The Guardians are 12-9 in second place. The Guardians have the 3rd best record in the American League. And people are afraid. Oh, the Yankees are coming in. Yankees are 1 game ahead of the Guardians. Yeah, they've scored 40 more runs, but they've also given up more runs than the Guardians. Everybody's always afraid of the Yankees. It's so ridiculous, especially the Cleveland media, who loves to find anything negative they can about the Guardians. And of course, the Cavaliers. Shout out to the Cavs for winning their opening round first playoff game last night, 121-100 over the Miami Heat. But let's get back to the Guardians. There's some things that alarmed me on the road trip. Tanner Bybee looked terrible for the 2nd consecutive start. I'm not going to give up on him. I'm not going to say, oh, he's going to be terrible. No, but he's got to get it together. They need him to be good. They can't afford Tanner Bybee having 1 good start, 1 bad start, 1 good start, 2 bad starts. No, they need Tanner Bybee to have good starts at least 2 out of 3 times. if not 3 out of 4. Can't have 2 clunkers in a row. And the home runs were unbelievable. You know, they were giving up home runs like crazy. Bybee in his start in Baltimore, 6 runs all earned in 5 2/3 innings. He gave up 3 home runs. And then Gavin Williams followed that up. Williams didn't pitch bad, though. I thought Williams pitched okay. But what killed him was the long ball. 4 runs on home runs. You know, Ortiz pitched pretty well in Pittsburgh the other day after giving up a leadoff home run on the first pitch of the game. He didn't give up another run. The bullpen tried to, you know, actually the bullpen was okay that day. But Allen, though, and Lively, they didn't give up any home runs. Allen hasn't given a home run up in his last 2 starts. But none of them are going deep into games. And I don't care when Stephen Vogt says he thinks 6 innings deep. It's not. 7 innings or more is deep. This 5 2. Oh, he went deep for us tonight. He went 5 2/3 innings. That's not deep. But you know, that's they outscored the Pirates 18-11. They were outscored by the Orioles 18-9, so they were -2 in the plus-minus in runs on the road trip. But I feel like when Baltimore comes here, you know, to play, the Guardians take 2 out of 3 here. You know, Baltimore was struggling so much that they were going, like I said, they were going to get on track. Baltimore's too good of a team to struggle that much. You know, they're 4-6 in their last 10. They lost on Sunday, but I think they had won 4 in a row prior to that. So, you know, that was not it was not great in Baltimore. It was actually it was pretty ugly the last 2 games in Baltimore. Let's be honest, that was ugly. And you know what's even uglier? You know what's uglier? And really, I just really hope some of the beat writers who cover, you know, the Guardians, and they know way more than me, okay, because they're there all the time. The guys that are there every day, you know, the Zach Meisels, the Paul Hoynesy, you know, the millennials don't like him because he's getting older and they think he's lazy, which is a blatant lie. He works harder than anyone else. But they need to ask him some questions. Tim Stebbins, the new MLB.com Guardians, they need to ask Vogt, are you using this bullpen too much? You know, I saw Tom Withers on Nick Camino's show last night on WKYC, and he talked about the bullpen and that, you know, he thinks it's being overused and that he's hoping that maybe something changes there too. It's getting used way too much. They went to the bullpen 23 times in 6 games on the road trip. That is unbelievable. That's almost four times per, you know, 4 times per game. If he keeps up at that pace, let's do some quick math here. If he keeps up at that pace, Stephen Vogt, at that pace, the bullpen will work 621 times this season. You think they'll be fresh? You think they'll be okay for the postseason? You think they'll be good if they face the Yankees again in the playoffs or another team that hits well? Yeah, no, they won't. They won't. The overuse of the bullpen was a problem last year, and it's a problem this year. And it's going to hurt this team just like it hurt them last year. I think you know, it is terrible to watch. It is just horrible. Like, I bet you they got betting lines in Vegas now. How many relievers will Stephen Vogt use tonight? And the fact that he went to Class A yesterday for the third day in a row, Class A blew the save. Of course he blew the save. He shouldn't have pitched a third day in a row. He shouldn't have. Anybody who's defending him at this point is purely an analytics person or such a brainwashed fan that they can't see what's going on here. It's terrible. Stephen Vogt is destroying this bullpen. Maybe one of the most talented bullpens Cleveland has ever had. And Stephen Vogt is destroying it. It will be interesting to see when this all shakes out. Say we look back in 5 or 10 years. How long these guys in this Cleveland bullpen last year and this year, how long their careers actually last. I don't think they'll last very long because he's blowing them out. And I don't care if he only threw 2 pitches, 3 pitches. You're pitching them every day. It's not good. It's not good. And don't give me this crap. He won Manager of the Year last year. He did. He won Manager of the Year. He was a big reason they won as many games as they did last season in the regular season. But he was also the reason they lost the ALCS. Let's be honest. He blew out the bullpen during the season, and they had nothing left. They were lucky to get by Detroit. They were lucky to get by Detroit because the bullpen was cracking then. And the water came right through the dam against the Yankees. It did. And it's going to happen again this year. And somebody in the media needs to ask him about this. They do. The Guardians have the best beat writers. Well, I think the NBA beat writers are pretty good too. The Cavs beat writers, because I'm one of them. But, if we're going to compare the Guardians to that circus over in Berea, they're a great group because they ask the questions, they cover the team fairly. They don't come up with garbage crap takes just to get hits. But they do need to ask the tough questions this week, this homestand. They need to ask, why is he going to the bullpen so much? What are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? Sorry about that. What are they doing to work with the starters so they're not throwing so many pitches so early? It seems like in the first inning, every Guardians starting pitcher, every one of them, with the exception of maybe Logan Allen, throws 20 to 25 pitches in the first inning. They throw 15 the next 4 innings. They're at 85 already. And Vogt doesn't want anybody to throw more than 85 pitches. So they're done. They're done. If they even make it through the 5th. They're surely not going to make it through the 6th. We got to coddle the starters and not let them throw a lot of pitches. But we'll use the bullpen guys every single day. Every single day. What's going to happen when Class A comes to the ballpark and he has to have the trainer look at him because his elbow's hurting? Or Hunter Gaddis. One of those guys. Or Tim Herron. What's going to happen? Somebody's going to blow out their elbow. Somebody is. Somebody's going to need Tommy John. because he's overworking the bullpen every single day. 23 times he went to the bullpen in a 6-game road trip. Way too much. So, but the offense is looking better. They only scored 11 runs in Baltimore, but there were flashes. Kyle Manzardo's back on track now, which is great. That's great. And I found a fun fact yesterday that I thought was pretty interesting. Let me read that. It's about Kyle Manzardo. Let's compare him to Josh Naylor because Cleveland fans like to do that. Cleveland fans always like to whine when guys get traded. And look, I like Naylor and Andres Jimenez. I said it right. Oh my God. I like those two. Don't get me wrong. And I didn't really like the trades at the time, and who knows how the season will play out. They could look bad at the end of the season. They looked bad the first week. People were like, oh, look what Naylor's doing. Oh, my Jimenez has 3 home runs. Look what he's doing. Well, so I did some research yesterday. Through yesterday's games, we've got some interesting stats as far as the Manzardo, Naylor, Arias, Jimenez comparisons. Here we go. Kyle Manzardo now has 6 home runs this season and 16 RBI. Josh Naylor has 4 home runs and 14 RBI. Gabriel Arias has 4 home runs and 10 RBI and is hitting .277, and he has 0 errors while playing second base. Andres Jimenez has 3 home runs. He hit them all the first week. 3 home runs and 8 RBI, and he's hitting .205, and he's got an error. So when we're going to start complaining about the trade the first week, how about we look at it after 3 weeks? After the 2 teams have played, like the Guardians have now played 21 games. Let's judge it after 21 games, not just after 6 or 9. The small sample people disappear when the small sample goes against them. They're nowhere to be found. I like to remind the small sample people. Small samples go both ways. Is this team the 95 Indians? Absolutely not. The pitching might be as good because that pitching was not great. It was good, but it wasn't great. I think this bullpen is comparable to that, maybe better. I honestly think the starting pitching is as good. Dennis Martinez was at the end of his career. Oh, it was great having him on the guard, being on the Indians. And Oral Hershiser near the end of his career. Charles Nagy, he was good. I would have to put Charles Nagy, almost in the Tanner Bybee role. But the lineup isn't with the 95. No, that lineup comes along once every 30 or 40 years, maybe once every 50 years. If you look at that lineup in 95 and compare it to the 1927 Yankees, I'm going to do that this week. I'll have it for you next week. That lineup is very comparable to the 27 Yankees. So, no, this team isn't them. But, of course, everyone in Cleveland, not everyone, the millennials in Cleveland, the millennials and younger, they want to compare them to the 95 Indians. Well, they're not them. That doesn't happen every day. Here's a news flash for you, millennials. 95 And through 99, that doesn't happen often. Okay. To any major league team, unless they have a payroll of $500 million. All right. So, no, this team isn't the 95 Indians, but it's well constructed by a really good front office. I was critical of them and what they did this winter, and I'm still critical of it. I was very critical when they traded Aaron Savali for Kyle Manzardo. I'll admit it. I look like an idiot now. You know, I can't say they've won the trade because Manzardo could be horrible the next month, and then he's hitting 150. But I think he's going to have a good year. I think he's really going to have a good year. I think he's going to hit 30 home runs. So, and I also, I wish they would play John Kenzie Noel. Nolan Jones isn't good, okay? Come on. Nolan Jones, you traded him once. Now you brought him back. It makes no sense. What? It would have been really nice if they gave John Kenzie Noel a fair shot this year. They're going to send him down. They're going to send him down. It's coming. If it doesn't happen this week, it'll happen next week. It will. They'll bring Will Brennan up, and then he'll sit on the bench too. He'll sit on the bench. You know, Will Brennan, who they told made the team, and then 2.5 hours later, they had to tell him he didn't make the team because they traded for Nolan Jones, who they didn't want 2 years ago. Yeah, that. But so now we've got 6 games coming up with the Yankees and Red Sox this week. It's a 10-game homestand, 6 with the Yankees, 6 with the Red Sox, 6 with the pathetic Twins. So now that I said that, the Twins will come in and take 3 out of 4. But no, they're not capable of that. But they're not. Remember that. They're not. They talk a lot of crap, their fan base and their media, but they're not capable of that. The Twins are terrible. You know, and they're terrible with Buxton and Correa healthy right now. What's going to happen when they get hurt? Because let's be honest, the sun rises, Buxton and Correa get injured. Okay, it happens. It's as sure as the sun rising. So I think Detroit, it's going to be Detroit and Cleveland. It's going to be a 2-team race. I could see Kansas City falling below Minnesota even. I really can. I thought they overperformed last year. Bobby Witt's a superstar. Pasquantino's a superstar. Salvador Perez is a Hall of Famer. India, he's good, but I don't know. He's not playing that well this year. I don't think their pitching staff is as good as it pitched last year. And I think they could finish in 4th place. I think they could finish behind the Twins. But those two, the Twins and the Royals, you know, they'll probably finish ahead of the White Sox, but they're going to finish far below the Guardians and the Tigers, I think. I feel like there will be 10 to 15 games separating 2nd and 3rd place by the All-Star break. I really do. I think the Tigers and the Guardians are the 2 teams in the division that are really good. And because I'm not as worried about the starting pitching as other people. I know, you know, they're being giving up the home runs, but I think they'll fix it. I think they will fix it. And hopefully then that prevents Vogt from using the bullpen 55 times, you know, a week. But but I think it's the Tigers and Guardians. And I still think the Guardians are going to win the division. I really do. I know this is a tough week coming up with the Yankees and Red Sox, but I feel like the Guardians are going to be in 1st place by the end of the week. I really do. I think the Guardians are going to be in 1st place by the end of Wednesday. So, but I'm going to say again, I'm not going to go overboard. I'm not going to, lose my mind and make some dumb prediction. I'm going to say 3-3 again this week. Like I said last week, honestly, I'll take 3-3. So I think one of the series they'll win, and one of the series they will lose. So that's my prediction for this week. I feel like by the time we talk again next week, the Guardians will be 15-12. So that's the show for this week, and I'm really glad you watched. And like I said, I give the straight shot here. I don't have to look up any numbers. I don't have to look up any basic stats, hitting, batting average, home runs, RBI. Yeah, I can see if a guy's good by watching him. I don't need to go, oh, well, he hit the slider. With a great exit velo on Tuesday when the weather was above 50 degrees. I don't need any of that crap to tell if a guy's good. Some people do. Some people, they couldn't judge like a high school game. They couldn't watch a high school game and know if a kid was good because they need all those other stats. But so I'll see you next week. I'll put something out if it's going to be Sunday, but it'll probably be Monday again at this time at 1:30. But until next week, let's go Guardians. And as Pete Franklin would say, let's beat those damn Yankees.